Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 261, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I am your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And I never get tired of just doing all kinds of inflections during this intro. What do you think?
What?
And this is Prior Dark for
I'm gonna give you an infraction for that inflection.
I would never induce an inflection, that's for sure. But
I'm just thinking, this is such a weird thing to bring up, but you've seen West Side Story, right?
It's been a long time. I don't know. I'm
depraved on account of being deprived.
I'm not a stickler for a tickler. But anyway, I wanted to do an episode kind of going along with like what I've been doing like in my personal life. So I wanted to do an introduction to like J.R.R. Tolkien, the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and The Hobbit, and The Lord of the Rings, because I started reading them because like I never really gave them a full fair shake when I was younger.
Yeah, it was the same with me. Like, I was like, I'm going to read these books, and there came a point where I'm like, all right. But, like, I read them actually myself only a few months ago. Again,
oh, did you?
I feel that I got more out of them.
Yeah. So I'm very much experiencing the same thing, and that's kind of why I brought it up. I didn't even know you had read them when I came up with this.
Well, the main difference from when I first read them is that I've mentioned this before. The third book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Return of the King, it ends like 2/3 of the way through the book.
Yeah.
So you're like,
and the rest is appendices.
What the hell is the rest?
Histories.
Yeah. So I was like, fuck this. But like, I actually read the appendices this time, and man, they go into deep lore. It's like oddly specific stuff. Like, there was a hero named Helm who hid out in these mountains, and that's why it's called Helm's Deep today. Like stuff like that. It's just interesting.
Yeah. So like, one of the things that I wanted to bring up about him is he was like the first author that I can think of in history to come up with like world building, like actual world building.
Well, not only that, he came up with like he was like a linguist, or like at least his hobby was being linguistics. He came up with the languages and stuff like that before he did the books. He was doing that stuff anyway. It wasn't just like, what language does the fictional race speak? English, but in code. Like, he developed the languages first and then wrote a book around it.
I also find it very interesting that he crafted the entire like story of Middle Earth from the perspective of the underdog race, even of the entire story. So
that was great, because that's the whole reason they won the war. Like, they went many places that no one else could have gone, because nobody gives two shits about a hobbit. What the fuck is he gonna do against my infinite legion of orcs? So like that's really why he was able to get as far as he got, because like nobody noticed, or if they did, they underestimated him.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that the entire lens in which this entire world is viewed through a race of creatures that is so insignificant that like elves don't even like, it doesn't even register on their like wizards barely know about them, and the only one that does is like friends with them is Gandalf.
Well, yeah, he's Gandalf, and he knows about them because he looks like at the big picture. Yeah. And he had a thing with Bilbo and the Hobbit before, so he knows Frodo kind of like incidentally through that.
But even before that, like Gandalf knew that Bilbo was special.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing. Well, he's like,
Bilbo
don't underestimate Bilbo. He is important. Like,
well, Bilbo was noticeable among hobbits anyway, because he was more like outspoken and adventurous, where like that wasn't really a thing. He was kind of the oddball of the group, and he was only seen as more and more odd when he got back from the Hobbit, because he'd gone on crazy adventures that nobody could comprehend. It's like they say at the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like, we're not going to be able to really talk about this to anyone. Like, we could, but they're not going to get it. Only we get it. Like,
Yeah.
this shit's incomprehensible.
Like, Bilbo was ostracized by, like, all of polite hobbits everywhere when he came back because he did not act like the typical hobbit.
Yeah, he was considered the weirdo. Like, he was somewhat respected because he'd apparently done something that was significant, and he was more long-lived than even regular hobbits were, but he was the weird one that people were like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. His own like namesake, the Bagginses, like totally shunned him, and basically it's all of his Took ancestry that he takes after.
Pretty much, yeah. Like they mentioned that several times in the book, The Hobbit, like a little bit of his Took personality.
Yeah, and obviously Frodo has that as well.
Yeah, and even the whole idea that hobbits aren't really big on boats, like they have very little interest and possibly fear of like the great waters. And Bilbo went like sailing for his adventures, and Frodo went like a third of the way like across the U.S. like on foot. like this shit's ridiculous.
Exactly. So I just kind of wanted to kind of talk about stuff like this because I really enjoyed The Hobbit. You know, The Hobbit is the one that I got through when I was a kid. When I was in
that's the more kid friendly book. That's the kind of thing that like a parent would read to a kid and the kid would get it. The Lord of the Rings is dense. Yeah,
I was just gonna say that. So when I was in middle school, I had a bunch of friends who were into it because they were into Magic the Gathering and D&D, and of course all of
D&D was heavily inspired.
All of fantasy in general spawns from J.R.R. Tolkien. So like all fantasy books basically
all the swords and sorcery barbarian stuff, because before that it was like Conan the Barbarian and like cowboys and stuff like that in Western media.
Yeah, and you had occasional wizards here and there, but nothing big.
You would have swords and sorcery all the time, actually. Like, there's stories of castles and Arthurian tales, but not, like, with the D&D, like, flavor
in the context
to it.
of myth. It was in the context of myth rather than an actual story.
Yeah, a unique, completely unique thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, he was like the first world builder. Like I'm convinced. Like I can't think of anybody else before him that was just like, okay, no, I need to even describe what they're eating. I can't think of anything before that.
Well, there's serial stuff that eventually evolved, like various comic books and stuff like that. But what interests me about the Lord of the Rings stuff is that like he goes into like. Though. But what was interesting to me about Lord of the Rings though is that he goes into deep lore that like. Yeah. Doesn't even tie into the story.
Exactly.
Like the Numerian kings and what Sauron was like back in the day. Like, this has no impact, or virtually, it has little impact. Like, it's stuff that you might find amusing, but all right. Like, for example, the big spider in the Two Towers, the book, The Return of the King, the movie, Shelob.
Yeah.
Ever wanted to hear about her mother? Because you can read about that in the Silmarillion, stuff like that.
I mean, I know there were other spiders in The Hobbit, so I'm wondering if they were kind of connected, but...
I'm not sure. I think those might have been just big monster spiders, because it mentioned Shelob was the last child of Ungoliant. And by the way, Ungoliant, because the Silmarillion is the book that I tried and outright fails to read when I was younger. I gave that a shot more recently and got more out of it this time. Ungoliant is the one thing in the mythos that I'm aware of that like the devil was afraid of, because like Sauron is not the big bad. He's the big bad of Lord of the Rings, but he's like a lieutenant or something of Morgoth, and it's called the Silmarillion. Like there are certain things, like the Odyssey is called that. The Odyssey is the adventure of Odysseus, stuff like that.
Sure.
Odyssey wasn't just a word that meant adventure. It was named after Odysseus, the guy. The Iliad, the Greek, what the Greeks called Troy was Ilium. The story of Ilium is the Iliad, etc.
Sure.
So the Silmarillion kind of is like centered around like the Silmarils, these three like super gems that even dwarfs could not possibly handle how awesome these things are. All dwarves do is deal with gems, and these are like, you've never ever seen anything like this and never will again. And like Morgoth, had teamed up with Ungoliant, and Ungoliant is like, I'll help you out if, like, you let me eat, like, if I say I want to eat it, you will feed it to me. And Morgoth is like, I will agree to that with the single exception of, like, the kingdom I found. Everything else, like, in the world should be good enough for you. And Ungoliant's like, yeah, alright. So eventually Morgoth gets the Silmarils, or at least one of them, I forgot. And Ungoliant was like, holy shit, I want to eat that. Like, that is the coolest looking thing I've ever seen. And Morgoth is like, like, I know what I promised you, but, like, I can't give this thing up, dude. Like, this is 3 of a kind. It's the greatest thing in the world. I can't let you have this. But Ungoliant's like, you fucking going back on your word there, buddy. And she starts trying to, like, attack Morgoth, who is, like, the universe's, like, he's like Mephisto. He's like the universe's big bad.
The devil.
He is the devil. Like, he was kicked out of the angels. He is Lucifer. And he, like, couldn't handle Ungoliant. He had to call 12 Balrogs in to get her the fuck off of him. And then she, like, ran off and was, like, never seen again. But, like, even Morgoth was afraid of Shelob's mom. That's, like, what? Like, that's insane.
All I know is the Balrogs of Morgoth that you're talking about. So.
Yeah, the one Balrog was, like, the scariest thing. Gandalf was like, we're not fighting this. And, like, Morgoth called 12 of them in. And they still didn't kill her. It's like, Jesus. The scariest thing ever.
But yeah, I read The Hobbit, and like, I got through it, and I think I got through it in time for the Lord of the Rings trilogy to start coming out, right?
Sure. But so by the way, one year after the Dungeons and Dragons movie. You almost can't tell the difference in quality with that short amount of time and difference between them.
I saw that in the theater, by the way.
So did I. And it was great.
But yeah, I read that, and I was just like, okay, so I know all about you know, the Gollum and all that stuff.
Sure.
So, like, when I went into I actually wanted to read the Lord of the Rings, you know, before the movies came out, but, like, I started reading Fellowship.
Tough.
What's that?
That's tough.
Yeah.
And we would have been in high school, so, like, we would have been interested enough to read the books, but not, like, finish them.
Yeah. So I started reading the Fellowship, and like, a word for the wise, if you are really into world building, this is for you, but also if you're not into that, it's not for you.
Yeah, every so often there's, like, a full page and a half of, like, somebody singing a song.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, okay. Like, even the second time around, I had trouble with those.
Yeah.
It's a little hard when there's no music. It's like when you read Dazzler in Marvel, you're like, I can't hear this. Like, this isn't doing anything for me.
But yeah, like, the whole beginning of Fellowship of the Ring is just, like, the history of hobbits and hobbit society.
Yeah, so that's already, like, we haven't, like, where's the story? Like, and the movies just kind of get it moving.
I am a quarter of the way through the book, and Frodo has just left the Shire.
It's a while.
I'm just telling you that. So it takes a long time to get going.
There is stuff though that I genuinely like that, like, I don't remember from the movie because it wasn't in there. Like, just the idea that like hobbits rarely see humans.
Yeah.
They probably even more rarely see elves. There's an amusing part where I don't even remember if this is in the movie, where, like, they encounter a band of elves walking by, and Frodo always hangs out with, you know, Bilbo, so he's learned some Elvish from him, and he's able to talk to elves a little bit. Like, it gives, like, a greeting in their language, and they're like, ho ho, impressive, and, like, stuff like that, and it's just, like, and it's, like, a legendary experience to see an elf at all.
Yeah,
and then, of course, he teams up with one throughout, like, the trilogy. It's amazing.
In the book, like, Sam is incredibly enthralled with meeting an elf because they are basically mythological to him.
They're way out there. Like, I mean, it's acknowledged they exist, but you're never going to meet one.
Exactly. These guys never leave the Shire. They have no desire to.
And also, as a general rule. And also because nobody cares about the Shire except for the people who live there. Like, why would elves ever come there?
And
What
it's
reason
the
could they
furthest
possibly
thing
have?
from Mordor. So yeah, it's the
Yeah.
furthest thing from the center of evil. So
And that, speaking of which, that's a whole other thing, is that there's this, like, is this really ever going to personally affect us? Do I need to get involved? And,
well,
like,
it starts to.
yeah, that's the yeah, you really do.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, evil starts to creep into everything in Middle Earth because of the return of Sauron. So
Yeah, I look. Oh, speaking of which, by the way, I was just gonna say I look forward to you getting to the scouring of the Shire in the third book eventually, because that whole thing is just not in the movies at all, even the director's
yeah.
cut.
I'm actually I am really enjoying the world building thoroughly. So I just even
The
like hearing
bartender.
about how dumb the hobbits are, like, in general. Like, they're just dumb and selfish, most of them.
Yeah, a lot of them are, and there's Bilbo even mentions a lot of his relatives are just kind of selfish pricks.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
one thing I should also mention, by the way, I forgot to say this. He Tolkien made the languages and all that stuff. If you go to the back of, at least with the editions I have, I don't remember if it was the back of each book or if it was the back of the Return of the King, but there's straight up pronunciation guides.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's like,
This was even
how do you
before, like,
pronounce this
Klingon.
name? Yeah. And there's glossaries, like, especially in the Silmarillion, there's a lot of this stuff. Like, Morgoth, as he's known in the common tongue, but his real name is Melkor, and, like, there's all, like, everything has two names, people and
Yeah.
places. Oh, according to the elves, they're called this instead. It's hard to follow.
But I also wanted to talk about just the shift in tone from The Hobbit to The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It is extremely noticeable. I mean,
The Hobbit is low stakes at first. Like, we're going on an adventure. We're going to steal some gold from a dragon, but this is like the world could end. We need to stop that from happening.
but it like, even the beginning of the book signifies this is dire, and
Yeah.
it never was like that in The Hobbit. The Hobbit was like, we're going to do this and you're going to go along with it. It's going to be tough, but you're going to do it. And
Yeah,
this
like,
is
some
like,
of us may die, but this is not like a conceptual threat. It's like a physical one.
no, Gandalf is like even afraid of just being around the ring.
Yeah, and Gandalf is
the
like
Fellowship.
Gandalf is one of those people who, like, you really shouldn't expect to help you under normal circumstances because he has grander, more important things to deal with that you can't comprehend. Like, oh no, I lost my book. Can you help me find it? Like, fuck you, dude. I'm dealing with cosmic shit. But, like, this is the cosmic shit.
This is the cosmic shit.
When,
Yeah.
when Gandalf is worried around you, that is, like, the scariest thing you've ever seen.
He is so scared of the ring that he doesn't even want to touch it, because he knows that it is, if it got a hold of him, it would be way worse than getting a hold of most.
That's the whole thing.
people.
Like you will want to wear the ring, and its power will corrupt you. So the more powerful somebody is, the worse it would be. Like, there's even a part where they go to the elfin home, where I forgot her name, but
Galadriel.
thank you. Where Galadriel is just like, imagine if I had the ring, and, like, just for a second, you see, like, oh, that'd be bad.
Yeah,
It's like,
there's kind of like a shadowy, like, tone to even hearing that, and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh man, no, keep
Yeah,
it away
like,
from
you
her.
get a vision of her with, like, the mwahaha maniacal. We're not doing this. Nope. Get rid of that shit. But what's scary about the ring, though, is that not only do you have to destroy it in the fire from which it was
the
forged in the
cracks of
first
Mount
place.
Doom.
Yeah, the cracks of Mount Doom. So good luck getting there. But not only do you have to do that, but, like, I don't think it's possible at all for the ring to be destroyed deliberately. So even if you get there, how are you going to do it? Because once you finally reach it,
It doesn't want you to kill it.
You're gonna
Yeah.
second guess yourself. Yeah, well, maybe if I just hold it on for one more second, like, do I have to destroy it this moment? Like, it will not happen. So this ring is extremely difficult to deal with, and even if Sauron's mission fails, he'll get another shot. He could wait a couple hundred years. He's been doing that. He's old as hell. So, like, how do you ultimately fix this problem? You could put it off, but, like, Sauron's conquest is inevitable if you can not destroy the ring deliberately. So that makes this whole arc even more difficult to deal with. We got a party to take it to Mount Doom, but I don't know what you're going to do when you get there.
I also find it interesting that J.R.R. Tolkien, like, took a look at, like, what he had created for his kids. Essentially, like, Hobbit was a book that he published that he had written for his children because he thought it was fun to come up with a story like that. And he looked back at it and he said, I want to write a sequel to this, but this is gonna be an adult novel, and it really is. It's not adult in the sense of, you know, sexy stuff or anything like that.
No, but
just
it's
the
heavy.
themes. It's very chaste, but in terms of themes, like even like existentialism and things like that, like, come into it. It gets very dark and even philosophical, whereas the original did not. The Hobbit did not. I just find it interesting that he's just like, okay, what do I have here? I have a magic ring. I didn't really describe what the magic ring is, other than an invisibility ring. So maybe I can do something with that.
And that's what I thought was super clever, by the way. Is like he added to the lore where it made Bilbo invisible because he's not a magic user. He's like a level 0. So like, the more powerful you are, the better effects it could have.
He's
like Frodo also
the
just
least powerful.
goes. Yeah, like Frodo also just goes invisible. But like, if Gandalf had it, who knows what he could pull off with it?
Yeah, so basically, he finds out that he becomes invisible because he's kind of pulling the veil of the dark realm over him.
Unfortunately, it basically acts as a beacon to Sauron's servants who are actively looking for him, the Nazgul. So, like, it's really frustrating because you'll get into an unwinnable situation where you're surrounded by enemies. Well, I gotta put the ring on to get out of this one, but then that calls the far scarier enemies over.
Yeah,
and you better take it off before they get there.
I just find it interesting that he did that, and he also was like, okay, I also have this character of Gollum that was really weird compared to all the other characters in the book.
He becomes like pivotal to the entire trilogy.
So I'm going to make him a pitiful character, like not even just like pitiful in terms of like he's like you actually pity him, like
part of because in the Hobbit he was just scary creature, but like in the Lord of the Rings,
he's damaged goods.
That's the thing. He's a rare case of you pity him precisely because he's such a piece of shit, because you know that he wasn't always this way. He's not just an asshole. Like, he's been corrupted over, like, I don't know if it's centuries, but a long time. Like,
no, it's centuries. He is so old that he is not quite a hobbit. Like a current hobbit. He's like a Neanderthal hobbit. He's like a pre-hobbit.
Yeah, and he's got like excellent mountain climbing skills. He
swims too.
And he has an inn with like the orcs. They'll just like let him by. And like even elves and humans are like, oh yeah, we kind of know about him. Just like don't go anywhere by yourself at night. Like he's just around. It's eerie.
And I love the fact that Gandalf is like, he really wants this ring, but he also really, really, really hates it. So he basically, he's kind of thematically making a drug user, him into a drug user. Like,
that's just it. Yeah, he's like, he does want the ring, but it's more like he's compelled to it.
He's compelled to it, but he also hates it because he knows he's getting corrupted by it.
Yeah, he is like he only has very little memory of what he used to be, but like he is aware that he was not always this way.
And it's also making him change his reframe his memories so that he is on the just side of things. Where he has he even developed an alternate self who is Gollum. They call him Gollum just like
I don't even know if it has a name, but they call him Gollum because he makes those coughing sounds like in the movie that it just sounds like Gollum when he coughs, and they're like, all right, we'll call him that.
Well, yeah, that's what they thought his name was, but his real name is Smeagol.
Smeagol.
Yeah, and he does like a Cain and Abel thing where he kills his best friend Deagle,
Yeah.
over the ring after Deagle finds it. So yeah, it's very like Cain and Abel thing, which shouldn't surprise you because also like one of the makings of Lord of the Rings is like J.R.R. Tolkien is a very staunch Christian.
If you read the Silmarillion, like I already mentioned, there was the creator and there were his angels, and one of them was an asshole who got like kicked out, and that was Melkor. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you can even point to the origin of a lot of this stuff. He looking back on it, they said that like J.R.R. Tolkien wanted to create a mythology for England to own, because a lot of their mythology is steeped in like I guess like English mythology only really exists in the sense of hero worship. So like
like
King
Arthurian
Arthur,
stuff.
King Arthur and Robin Hood, right? Those are like the things that you think about when you think of English mythology. But like they don't have their own like Celtic traditions or anything like that. They also they have early Christianity, obviously, but
Yeah, but of course that was heavily inspired by previous religions anyway.
yeah, exactly. So he wanted to do that, but obviously a lot of this is like he was a very so he makes some kind of like a funhouse mirror version of Christianity over to his own mythology. And C.S. Lewis was a contemporary of his and like one of his best friends. And
he also made
Christianity
in fantasy novels.
Yeah, he did that in the Chronicles of Narnia. So like to the point where Aslan is absolutely he basically said I think he outright said that Aslan is that world's Jesus. Like Jesus exists in multiple facets, and in that universe, that is their Jesus. So like he's just like straight up admitted that. So yeah, I just think it's like super interesting that like they have these like trains of thought and being in their own cultural existence, and he just like reflects that on the page. I just love that. And I'm getting more and more into it. I just read the part where Frodo meets the elves for the first time. So like in the woods.
Yeah, that's a very entertaining part. And again, I don't really remember that in the book so well. Or excuse me, in the movie so well. I don't remember.
I don't think it even happened in the movie, honestly.
Yeah, because he hangs out with that one guy at the bar and they're chatting it up, and he's like, "Damn, it's cool that I'm talking to an elf," and he's like, "Damn, it's cool that a hobbit like knows more than nothing about elves and their culture. Like, you must have had a good teacher." And he's like, "Oh, I did."
Yeah, so I'm what I'm gonna do is my plan is to read through all of the Lord of the Rings, including the appendices, because now I want back then I didn't have
the real deep lore.
I back then I didn't have the patience for the world building, but now I do.
Yeah.
In fact, I like that stuff the most. And I plan on reading. I have the Tolkien Reader, which has like some of the more obscure stuff in it, including like the Tom Bombadil, the Song of Tom Bombadil. I think is in here.
That I do not have. I have read
Adventures of Tom Bombadil. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that one I would like to read. The probably the most obscure Tolkien thing I've read that is not tied to Lord of the Rings is. It was like Giles of Ham, I think.
Yeah, it's in here too. Farmer Giles of Ham. Yeah,
Farmer Giles of Ham, and there was like another story that was attached to it. It was something involving
fairy
like
stories. Yeah.
It was something like with making like a big cake for feast day, and then someone met like the Queen of the Fairies. It's just like their own little stories that have nothing at all to do with Lord of the Rings. It's just like Tolkien's also written this other stuff, and they're fun reads.
Yeah, I wanted to read that, and I wanted to read the Silmarillion.
User-friendly.
I wanted to read the Silmarillion at some point because he really does describe.
That just straight up is the Bible.
Sauron
like it's thick. Yeah.
Yeah, but
good read.
Yeah, the Silmarillion though is more of like it's kind of like the Bible version of
Well, yeah,
of
that's what I said. It's
yeah.
like the deep lore. It starts with the creation, and then it goes into stories of people of note. But it talks a lot about the. Oof, I apologize for this. The Velkar, the Veldar,
Yeah, no, Velkar sounds right.
because there's Melkor. It might have been Veldar, but
No, I
like
don't know.
the
It's
angels,
all
whatever. Like,
nonsense words.
yeah, I mean, what do you want? But like, it goes into them, and they're allying up with each other and going against Melkor, who's just trying to cause havoc and everything like that. It's entertaining.
Well, yeah, that's my next goal is to after that read the Silmarillion because like I want to know about like the backstory of Sauron and that kind of stuff. So
Well,
um,
honestly, I mean, they do. I think they go into it a bit. I still recommend you read the Lord of the Rings. Oh, this is after Lord of the Rings trilogy.
after, yeah,
Because
after.
the end of Return of the King with the Pendices goes into some backstory of Sauron anyway,
Oh,
with
okay,
the Numerian kings.
okay.
So you'll get that. The Silmarillion goes way back to Melkor and Ungoliant. Like the closest thing we have to like entities of creation is probably going to be Sauron himself or Shelob the spider.
Well, I also want to hear about like how wizards came to be. I don't know where that comes up, but
I don't remember. I
yeah.
don't remember. But I just like the Shelob stuff. It's just like Shelob isn't in the Silmarillion at all. I don't think it's just Ungoliant, who's like the scariest spider ever. But I just like reading about Shelob in the Two Towers, where the orcs are just like, go into her cave, give her a body, and get out. She creeps me out. Like, because you know how in the movies, they fight Shelob and chase her off? There's a part that you don't get in the movie when Sam overhears orcs talking about him, but they don't know who it was. And they're like, well, I don't really mind that somebody stuck a pin in Shelob, because Shelob scares me. But what I do... Oh, no. He says, I don't mind that Shelob has been stuck. What I do mind is that there's someone who was able to do that. Who is this biggest, baddest motherfucker ever who's apparently invading our territory? Like, I don't want to meet that guy. And it's like, it's Sam. It just amuses me. And even then, he did cut off part of her mandible, I think. But, like, the reason she got injured so badly is because Sam got under her, so she decided to butt stomp. So Sam just stuck the sword up. So she, like, stabbed herself. But, like, nobody knows that. They just know that somebody got Shelob to run away, and they're like, who is this guy? That's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, I'm excited because I really am enjoying it this time around, and I'm moving through it pretty quickly. So it's
cool
kind
to
of
see different...
what I read in my moments on my lunch break at work and that kind of thing.
That's exactly when I do my reading as well. Yeah, this is my chance. But like, it's cool to see different interpretations of the scenarios, and sometimes we hear the orcs just bickering amongst themselves or whatever. Like, there's some really interesting stuff in there. And again, Scouring of the Shire, that's 100% not in the movie. So like, look forward to that.
Well, I certainly will, but we should move on to fan stuff.
Why? Yes. So, Living Corpse has a couple of comments.
Cool.
Something new Silent Hill game. Don't do that. Don't give me hope.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I don't even get the hope, because like, it's bullshit. If Konami's gonna say something, they'll say something. It's like,
exactly.
I'm so sick of somebody making a game that looks kind of like Silent Hill, or somebody working with Konami. Could this be new Silent Hill?
Come up with something different.
No, it's fucking not.
Come up with something different. Just like
Yeah.
do your own thing, please.
And then Living Corpse also said Gwen Stacy could have survived if Spider-Man jumped down, grabbed her, used his web to swing them to the side, and then up, slowing down their momentum. I mean, yes, absolutely. But, like, it was a knee-jerk reaction, and the Green Goblin is still right there. Like,
Sure.
so it was just like, web, and, like, it ended up terribly.
Yeah.
Sabrina Hengel says, I'm looking forward to AI Nirvana, or whatever the rest of the title is, that follow up to AI Somnium Files.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely, because the title is Nirvana backward, and I just don't feel like pronouncing that. I absolutely enjoyed the first game. There are also a bunch of Trails games in the way, so I couldn't be happier. Yeah, like this is the moment. And then Dracologist says, because I was talking about Sabretooth's like super anti-mutant father, Dracologist says, wasn't the anti-mutant guy his son? Maybe it's been a while. I want to say father, at least based on the '90s cartoon, but I could be wrong. I just remember. I think it was the father, just because.
Yeah, it is his son.
It is the son?
Yeah.
Okay, because it just looked to me like when the guy came back home, Sabretooth looked like he was ready to give payback because he was beaten as a kid, so maybe I'm just conflating something.
Yeah.
But fair enough. And then good opening scenes. Shadow Warrior 1 and 2, because Stan Bush, I'll take your word. Saints Row 4 with the commando start, disabling ICBM midway and falling into the Oval Office.
Whoa. Oh, yeah. Saints Row 4 has an amazing...
that sounds amazing. Yeah,
it's like one of the coolest intros to any game ever. I should have talked about Saints Row 4. It was that Saints Row the Third has a really great intro too. Yeah, it's really.
And
good.
Then the rest of the post is there are other good openings probably, but game title / opening right now not so much. Well, I mean, one of my favorite title drops that I've seen recently was Ghost of Tsushima, because you go through this whole prologue section.
I really want to play that.
Do it. But you go through this whole prologue section, and then you get onto a horse, and you ride off into the gorgeous, like, the tall grass, where it's, like, when the wind blows, it goes in, like, waves, so it looks all gorgeous as you run through it, and there's all this color, and then it goes, like, bam, like, sucker punch. Ghost of Tsushima. It's so well timed. It just hit hard.
It's amazing.
So, we do have a question. It's a new one, but it is also the last one. From Sabrina Hengel. Something you've been morbidly curious about for years and have also thought of doing or trying multiple times, but still end up not doing it or trying it for some unexplainable reason. Can be anything. For me, that would be going overseas alone, despite spending most of my holidays or vacations alone. Another thing would be getting a tattoo, despite having multiple piercings already. We've both gone overseas alone, except we went to meet people, so the actual travel was alone.
Yeah.
But we weren't, like, in the other country the whole time, just by ourselves.
Yeah, I was never by myself. I went to go meet a good friend.
Yeah, same with me. I went to the airport by myself, but once I got there, someone was waiting for me. But somewhat similarly, though, both of us have wanted for years to go to Japan. It would just be amazing, and we've never, like, all of our friends have done it except for us.
Yeah, and you would think that we would have done it by this point. Honestly, just given us our fandom, but
and that'd have been great. I would love to go with Perry or Mr. Ryu or Luminaire, because those guys could actually hold up all right, like, in Japanese.
Yeah. They can at least even, like, read, like, a timetable on a.
Oh yeah, because they went to
a train station.
They took Japanese for I think. I forgot how long. It was at least 2 semesters. It might have been longer in college. Like, I mean, like they had enough experience to get to maneuver Japan all right. Like the last times they went.
Yeah. I would really want that to do that. I mean, I in terms of countries, I've always wanted to go back to go to Italy. I've never been, and I have family over there.
My parents went there actually.
My dad, I'm actually like first generation. Immigrant, believe it or not. Like my dad came over from when he was 5 years old. And you can't tell because obviously he doesn't
spent your whole life here.
Yeah, but like he grew up here. But like we still have close family over there that I've talked to a few times, but like
sure.
I really want to talk to them and build a relationship with them before my father passes away. He's getting up there in age, so I don't want to lose that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to lose the connection. So I really want to do that as well. Let me see. I also want to visit like the biggest cities in the United States as well. That's another thing I've always wanted to do and haven't had a chance to. I've done it. The biggest ones. Obviously I go to New York pretty frequently.
Yeah, New York's easy for us.
But I've been to L.A. Which is the next biggest. But
you should go to Canadian New York, Vancouver. That's New York City.
I've never been to
Vancouver.
Norm
Macdonald opened up an award show
Toronto
with that
either. So
well, Norm Macdonald opened up like some award show with that in his monologue. Like, it's great to be here in Vancouver, or as it's known, like in the States, New York City. It was amazing.
It's true.
Jason Takes Manhattan in Vancouver.
Yeah, there are a lot of movies that do that. Like even Rumbles in the Bronx does that. I think
It's like never in the Bronx.
Yeah,
my dad grew up in the Bronx. It's like I don't think it's quite the same thing.
The Death Wish movies do that too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. They're mainly filmed in, except for like like B-roll footage at the beginning or whatever.
Sure. Oh yeah, with the stock helicopter footage or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that Red Letter Media was talking about this. This cracked me up about the movie Hackers, where it opens up with stock footage that was old even at the time because like they pan over the MetLife building.
Pan Am building.
It was the Pan Am building. Yeah, which
Pan
was
Am
like
building.
It stopped being Pan Am like in the 80s. Like I think that might have been outdated like even when the movie came out, or if not then shortly after.
Macaulay Culkin was in that one.
Yeah, he's the one who pointed that out. I don't know if the Red Letter Media guys themselves would have known that inherently, but Macaulay Culkin like has more familiarity with that. He's like, it's been the MetLife building since 1980 something. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a daredevil, so like some people will say probably to this question, I've always wanted to skydive or something like that. I do not want to skydive.
Pass.
I am very averse to things that can actually kill me, and skydiving is one of those things that can actually kill me.
It's one of those things where if you made me do it, I would be like wetting my pants the entire time, and after the fact I'd be like, well, I did it, and I guess I'll say I'm happy I did it, but like I would never want to do it.
Yeah, no, I skydiving is something that terrifies me. I'm also afraid of heights. So like
the closest I've ever come to anything like that, and this is not even close, but the closest I've ever come to that was did you do this in your school? Did you have rock climbing in gym in your school?
Yeah, but I actually enjoy that.
I was okay enough with it. The only thing that's scary though is that because like they make damn sure like they have multiple people tie the knots all around you for your harness. The gym teacher checks it and double checks it and everything. This is safe, but like the scary thing is when you climb all the way up and you do whatever it is you're doing up there, they tell you to just let go.
Fall down. Yeah,
and like you fall down slowly. You're not falling at falling speeds, and you're caught anyway. But like this.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, this would kill me or cripple me for life. So, like, I had to close my eyes and actually count to 3 and force myself to not think about what I was doing. Scary in the moment.
Yeah, you kind of have to just trust the person who's belaying you.
Yeah, and they're not messing around, but like the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. This is not like an adventurous thing or anything like that, but I used to be very creative and had a lot of ambitions to make a movie. I back in college I made a couple films and they were kind of documentaries. One was about my weight loss at the time.
Yeah, I remember you showcased that one.
And the other one was about like the video game like people that I knew in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And like talking about like how video games affect their life and things like that. And I really enjoyed doing that. But I never got a chance to make like my epic film or whatever, what I had in my head at the time.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the more and more I ever thought about making a film, the more and more it daunted me because I knew I would have to organize it and also like fundraise and do all kinds of things for it
and keep up with the endless amounts of minutia during the fact.
Like, exactly,
so and also juggle and keep people happy and remember that this needs to be maintained and
exactly. It's a group activity, right? It's something that requires extreme organization and also like everybody else needs to believe in it too. I more and more I thought about it, and that's why young filmmakers make things that are like well grounded usually, or with only a couple people in it.
Yeah, like I can film this with my camera.
With my best friend.
We're not going to have multiple angles, but what do you want? I'm 16.
Yeah. So like, the Raimi brothers filmed Evil Dead with their friend, Bruce Campbell, like...
I still can't believe, if you look up the scene, behind the scenes stuff with that, you see the clapboard It says Sammy Raimi.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
it's like
like
unreal.
they were like 20 at the time when they made that, something like that, and they even made something like a prototype of that, like in high school before that. So like they had been doing this for a long time, and like they gave a shit about what they were doing, right? You have to make sure about that, and so like I didn't have that. I didn't have friends that wanted to make the epic with me or whatever, you know what I mean? So and like a whole troop of people that want, and what I wanted to make was grand and difficult. So like the more and more I started thinking about it, the only and the more and more I've gone through it in life, the only way that I could make something the way I wanted to, and have complete control over it, which means like wouldn't need to hire. I'm not an artist, so I can't draw. I'm just not good at it. I don't have an eye for it. I would need to hire an artist if I were going to do like a comic book version of whatever I was thinking, right?
Well, yeah, there's just so much stuff like that, and like you need to pay for the locations that you're gonna go. Like
And I might even need to share like creation rights and all kinds of things.
yeah,
there's
all sorts of stuff. Like I remember when James Rolfe was making the video game nerd movie, he was like, you look at budgets of movies and you're like, why are they so stupidly expensive?
You have to feed people.
Now I know. Yeah.
You have to feed people. You have to transport them. You have to like
you have to get permissions to be able to film in certain locations.
Exactly.
Like,
you have to get permits.
You need the camera.
Insurance.
Yeah, insurance.
Yeah, you need all kinds of things. It's not just like having the equipment, even. So, it's not like Tommy Wiseau. We can't all just like buy expensive cameras out of nowhere for no apparent reason. But anyway, so I've come to the conclusion that I am a good writer, though. I believe in my skill in writing. So I what I would really love to do is sit down and actually like write the story I've always wanted to write, like in novel form. And I the more and more I thought about it, I was like, well, geez, what kind of art is singularly created, generally speaking, and generally it's novels and like paintings, like are basically the only things that I can think of, and like
you could always get into sculpting marble statues.
Sculpting too, yeah, sculpting, like, but most artists, I guess, from that standpoint are singular. So I don't have I don't have an eye for creation in that way. I could probably film a movie eventually, but like I never entered that field far enough in order to get those skills. So I thought, yeah, maybe I could. So the long-winded answer to this question is I wish. I want to start to write it, and I'm scared in some regard, because I know that the story that I want to tell is one that I've been developing in my head ever since I like thought of it, right? And so it is a living, breathing thing, and once I write it down, it's no longer like in flux, as much. It's less and less in flux as I write it, right? Mm-hmm. So of course I could switch it around and change it around and rework things, but it's less alive by doing that, and eventually it will be on the page, and I can't change it anymore unless I George Lucas it, which nobody will like. So there's that, and there's also the like. Will anybody give a shit? you know what I mean? Like,
that's the really big thing. Because
will anybody give a shit? Yeah,
I've seen people say that about like their YouTube channels. Like, what if nobody watches this? And the answer is
just do it because you want to.
Yeah, unless you are planning on making this your primary career, like you are gonna make your living off of your book. Fuck it, do it because you want to do it. And honestly, it'll come off better that way anyway, because if you're doing it like, I want to please this or that demographic, you might change.
I don't want to please anybody but myself, honestly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's one thing, like, Twitch streamers are actually making their living streaming, so they're gonna do certain things a certain way, but like you have more, I think, creative control when you don't have that.
Yeah. And it also makes me think, I kind of want to do it as a trilogy, but then again, I'm being over ambitious because I haven't even written anything yet. So, but like, should I even try to shop it around as one book, or should I shop it around as like a completed trilogy work?
There's the thing we were talking about with Stephen King and The Dark Tower. Like, shop what around? Like, write it and see what happens as it is being written.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing is I kind of have an outline in my head of how I want it to go, but I haven't like actually written anything or any dialogue. Like I have action in my head, like
that's exactly it. And it's like what I was talking about with Hirohiko Araki, like with his manga in theory and practice. You can't, and George R.R. Martin, you can't force from point A to point B. You like the characters become more real after you get their conceptual version out in like chapter 1. And then what would they do? And like the story almost becomes like you said it was a living thing, but it almost becomes like an actual living thing at that point.
Yeah, because at that and we talked about this when we talked about Stephen King, but he literally had no idea how Dark Tower was going
that's
to
just
end.
it. Yeah, you could like, and same thing with Kentaro Miura. He said like, well, I would like there to be an ending that's more positive than and everybody dies or the hero fails or whatever, but like
I'm not there yet.
I gotta see. Yeah
Like,
so we have a vibe of what he wants, but I don't know what the last chapter of Berserk would have been. Who even knows if he thought of how the Skull Knight is going to resolve his conflict with Void, if that happens, etc. There's all sorts of things, so we don't know what it could have been.
I mean, it could have ended up the way that Gantz did, and you have a whole bunch of questions and go, like, what? At the end of that.
Why did you end it like this? Yeah.
Like, I didn't want this. What is this?
Yeah, it was... I guess that arc is over. Oh, that's a series. All right.
And you answered a question for me that I didn't have, but...
Yeah.
Like the whole ending question is, like, do humans have a soul? Which, like... Nothing in previously in Gantz made me think to ask that question.
Yeah, that wasn't the point. It was like weirder and weirder shit is showing up. Be ready.
Yeah, exactly. What is this game and why are they in it? Like that kind of thing. What else are they going to be
That's the whole
given?
thing. Why is it being treated as a game? Why am I getting upgrade points? Why am I being allowed to leave? Isn't this an outside threat? Whatever. I don't know.
Also, it was like interesting to see like what if it messes up and there are multiple versions of you walking around?
Yeah, Gantz itself was imperfect. It made mistakes, and you're like, oh ho ho, but like, I don't know, whatever. We beat the last set of aliens that showed up. It's fine. The series is over.
Yeah, and
really abruptly ended too. It just
really
stopped.
could have kept going with that series. That's the thing. He really could have kept going. I get the feeling
like,
he just
the anime
just wanted
had
to
to
drop it.
The anime had to fudge an ending because it ended far before the manga did.
The second season, god damn, it's so. But
in retrospect, that ending might have been better because it's not just like we're done.
Yeah,
I mean, like the manga was more conclusive. I'll give you that, but it was just like we're done.
and here's humans being depraved because that's their nature now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was an interesting angle. Like, I'm okay with that, but like,
yeah,
shit just stops.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't know. Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at Junji Ito's stories, people fucking suck. Like, with a single exception of the protagonist, people are garbage in those books.
Yeah.
Or like, no I mention this as a joke every once in a while because no one's read it, but Biomeat.
Oh, I really want to read that.
People are fucking reprehensible in Biomeat. But then they quickly die because how do you stop Biomeat? But like, people are shit in Biomeat.
Did you see my my Wile E. Coyote?
It was
like,
made for
retweet?
me. Yeah, that this hole is mine. It was made for me. the funny thing is though, like, if you want to overthink it, the Wile E. Coyote hole was made because he fell into the ground.
Yeah.
He made the hole.
I know. That's why it's so funny.
It's made by me.
It is his hole. He did make it.
Yeah, he was already in it.
It was made for him. It was made by him. That is one of the most brilliant like jokes on a thing. Like if you know what it's referring to, you're like, wow, goddamn, like, that's funny.
Deformed Wile E. Coyote, der.
That also goes along with the Garfield Control Alt Delete that I also posted. Did you read that?
I don't think so.
Oh, you need to go back. It's like a parody of Lost, but
I did see that. Yeah.
At the end, it's just Garfield smoking a pipe instead of like a miscarriage.
Yeah. Yes, I did see that one.
It's so stupid, but it's brilliant. But you only get it if you know the original thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
At this point, it's been long enough that people might actually I was gonna say it's been around long enough everyone knows it, but at this point, it's been around long enough that people might not know it.
It doesn't matter. I like it. But yeah. That's my big thing. I wish I could get off my butt and finally get the courage up to say, hey, I'm going to write this, and then write it to completion. And
you could do Stephen King's method, 1 page per day.
Yeah, if I can, I would love to just write it for myself. I don't even want to sell it.
You could be like John. I think it was John Malkovich in Burn After Reading. You just keep calling it your memoirs.
Yeah, that's
These
true.
These are my memoirs.
Yep. Do you have anything like that?
I actually had considered the idea of writing a book a long time ago, but I don't have any clue of what it would be about.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's probably my big one, honestly.
Sure.
But that was an excellent question. I have to thank you for...
It's a fascinating reflective study.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the show for this week. We want to thank... we want to... Jeez.
We want to go to bed.
I want to go to bed, yeah, exactly. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. The one question, we need more.
Yeah,
Come
very
on, guys.
much appreciate it. Thank you again.
Yeah, we do greatly appreciate it. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays for our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much anything.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right. Well, we will catch everybody on Reactive then on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.